The emergency alarm blared through the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Valiant. Captain John Taylor gripped the armrests of his command chair as the holographic display lit up with urgent notifications. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call from Proxima Centauri colony," said Communications Officer Linda Ross. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "Audio only, sir," John nodded. "Put it through." The speakers crackled with static before a terrified voice broke through. "This is Governor Sam Bell of Proxima Centauri colony. We are under attack by unknown alien vessels. They appeared without warning. Our defenses are failing. We need immediate assistance." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Try to re-establish." "Contact," John ordered, rising from his chair. The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of equipment. Everyone knew what this meant. Humanity had explored space for nearly a century without encountering hostile, intelligent life. That peaceful era was apparently over. Linda shook her head after several attempts. "No response, Captain." John turned to his first officer. "Commander Peters, alert Admiral Martinez. Tell her we have a first contact situation gone wrong." Within 3 hours, the highest-ranking officers of the Earth Defense Force gathered in the orbital headquarters above Earth. The large conference room was filled with concerned faces as Admiral Lisa Martinez stood at the head of the table, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, her expression grim. "Ladies and gentlemen, at 600 hours today, Proxima Centauri colony went silent after reporting an attack by unknown alien vessels," she said. "Satellite imagery captured before communications were lost shows at least 12 ships of unknown design. They do not match any known human configuration." The room erupted with questions, but Lisa raised her hand for silence. "We've received similar reports from 3 other outer colonies in the past 2 hours. These attacks appear coordinated and deliberate." She gestured to a stern-looking man with salt and pepper hair. "Commander Alan Wright, our best tactical officer, will head up our response team." Alan stood. "Based on what little information we have, these aliens possess technology significantly more advanced than ours. Their weapons cut through our colonial defenses like they weren't even there." "Do we know what they want?" asked Dr. Susan Miller, the EDF's chief engineer. Her red hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, her eyes sharp behind rimless glasses. Lisa shook her head. "Not yet. But 30 minutes ago we intercepted a transmission between their vessels. Our linguistics team made a preliminary translation." She pressed a button, and a harsh clicking language filled the room before switching to a computer-generated English voice. "The humans possess rudimentary space technology as expected. Their defenses are negligible. Proceed with standard subjugation protocols. The Sharkul Dominion will add their worlds to our collection within the standard timeframe." A heavy silence fell over the room. Eric Peterson, the EDF's top diplomat, spoke up. "They're talking about us like we're insects to be collected. Or resources to be harvested," Alan added grimly. Lisa looked around the table. "Intelligence suggests these Sharkul have conquered dozens of civilizations. They see humans as just another species to add to their empire." On the main screen, a map of human-settled space appeared with red markers showing the locations of attacks. The pattern was clear. The aliens were systematically working their way toward Earth. "They're testing our defenses," Alan observed. "Learning our capabilities before they hit our core worlds. Then we need to show them we're not as easy to conquer as they think," John said, studying the tactical display. Lisa nodded. "Captain Taylor, your ship is the fastest in the fleet. I'm sending you to New Horizon Colony. Intelligence suggests it's their next target. Commander Wright will accompany you as tactical advisor." Susan raised her hand. "Admiral, I've been working on some experimental shield modifications. They're not fully tested, but get them ready for the Valiant," Lisa ordered. "We need every advantage we can get." Eric frowned. "Shouldn't we attempt communication first? Maybe we can resolve this peacefully." "We'll try," Lisa assured him. "You'll join Captain Taylor's mission as our diplomatic voice. But based on their transmission, I don't think the Sharkul are interested in talking." She looked around the table. "Make no mistake. We are now in a state of war with an enemy that considers our defeat a foregone conclusion." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity, as the Valiant prepared for emergency deployment. Extra weapons were loaded, crew rotations adjusted, and Susan's engineering team worked frantically to install the experimental shield modifications. John found Alan in the tactical room, studying the limited footage of the alien ships. "Any insights?" John asked. Alan nodded. "They rely heavily on energy weapons, and their attack patterns show remarkable coordination, but very little creativity. It's like they're following a script." "Scripts can be disrupted," John noted. "Exactly. They think we'll respond like all their previous conquests with fear and disorganized resistance." Alan smiled thinly. "I think we should surprise them." Meanwhile, in the engine room, Susan directed her team with rapid-fire instructions. "The power regulators need to be recalibrated to handle the load from the new shields," she told a group of engineers. "And someone get me those phase alignment tools." A young engineer approached her nervously. "Dr. Miller, the new configuration is untested. If the calibration is off, we could lose power to the whole ship." Susan didn't look up from her work. "Then we'd better get it right the first time." On the diplomatic deck, Eric prepared his team for potential first contact scenarios. "We know almost nothing about their culture or values," he told his staff. "But their actions suggest they view other species as inferior. Our job is to try finding common ground, while making it clear that humanity won't surrender without a fight." As the Valiant prepared to depart, more distress calls arrived from outer colonies. The Sharkul were moving faster than expected, destroying any human settlements that resisted and occupying those that surrendered. John stood on his bridge as the final preparations were completed. The ship hummed with power as Susan's modifications came online. "All departments report ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Kelly Zhao from the operations station. "Very good." John took his seat and opened a shipwide channel. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. We are about to face an enemy unlike any humanity has encountered before. They believe we will be an easy conquest. Our job is to prove them wrong." He paused. "The people of Earth are counting on us. Let's show these Sharkul what happens when they pick a fight with humans. Taylor out." As the Valiant broke orbit and accelerated toward its jump point, John exchanged glances with Alan. Both men knew the odds were against them. The Sharkul had technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities, but what the aliens couldn't understand, was human determination. The Sharkul expected another easy victory against a primitive species. They were about to learn a painful lesson. The Sharkul fleet emerged from hyperspace near the human outpost of New Horizon. 7 massive warships, their hulls dark and imposing, moved into attack formation. On the command deck of the lead vessel, Supreme Commander Vrax observed the small human defense fleet with disdain. "Pitiful," he said to his second-in-command. His voice was deep and gravelly, a sign of his advanced age and status among the Sharkul. "Only 5 ships to defend an entire colony. These humans have no concept of warfare." "Our scans show basic weapon systems, Supreme Commander," reported the officer. "Nothing that can penetrate our shields." Vrax nodded, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the tactical displays. "Proceed with standard conquest protocol. Disable their ships, then begin planetary occupation." On the bridge of the human vessel Swift, Captain Olivia Garcia watched the alien ships approach. Unlike the other officers, she didn't look afraid. Instead, her eyes held a spark of determination. "They're forming up for an attack run," reported her tactical officer. Olivia nodded. "Just as we expected. Are the modifications ready?" "Yes, Captain. All 5 ships have been equipped with the reverse-engineered technology. After the attack on Proxima Centauri, Olivia had led a salvage team to recover pieces of destroyed Sharkul vessels. Working day and night, she had discovered a way to modify human weapons to disrupt the aliens' shield frequencies. It was untested in actual combat, but it was the best hope they had. "Signal the other ships," Olivia ordered. "Execute Plan Wildfire." The human vessels suddenly broke formation, each flying in a different, seemingly random direction. The Sharkul ships hesitated, their predictable attack pattern disrupted by the chaotic movement. "What are they doing?" demanded Vrax, watching the display with confusion. This is not a recognized defense pattern. Before his officers could respond, the Swift accelerated directly toward the Shar-Kul flagship, while the other human ships targeted the supporting vessels. "They're on a collision." "Course," exclaimed the Shar-Kul weapons officer. "This tactic is illogical. Destroy them," ordered Vrax confidently. The Shar-Kul vessel fired its main weapons, expecting to vaporize the human ship instantly. Instead, the Swift's newly modified shields absorbed the impact. The smaller ship continued its charge, firing its own weapons. The modified human weapons struck the Shar-Kul ship, causing its shields to flicker and fail in one section. Alarms blared on the alien bridge. "Impossible," shouted Vrax, rising from his command chair. "How did they penetrate our shields?" Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as the other human ships executed their own attack runs. Lieutenant Kevin Hughes led a squadron of fighter craft that exploited the gaps in Shar-Kul shields. "Remember the plan," Kevin told his pilots as they weaved between energy blasts. "Target the spots where their shield generators connect to the main power system." Kevin's squadron dived toward the largest Shar-Kul destroyer. The alien vessel fired constantly, but couldn't lock onto the nimble human fighters, which flew in unpredictable patterns. "I have a lock," called one of the pilots. "Firing now." A specially designed missile struck the vulnerable connection point on the Shar-Kul ship. The destroyer's lights flickered, and its weapons went offline. "Keep pressing the attack," Kevin ordered, his fighters spiraling to avoid enemy fire. "They didn't expect us to fight back." Within the next hour, 3 Shar-Kul destroyers were disabled, their systems failing from precision strikes at weak points no other species had ever targeted before. The remaining alien vessels struggled to coordinate their defense against the chaotic human assault. On the Shar-Kul flagship, Vrax watched in growing horror as his fleet's formation fell apart. Nothing in his 2 centuries of military experience had prepared him for this. The humans were fighting unlike any species the Shar-Kul had ever conquered. "We must withdraw and regroup," his second-in-command suggested. "Withdraw? The Shar-Kul do not retreat from primitive species," Vrax snarled. But even as he spoke, another section of his ship lost power. On the Swift, Olivia received reports of their unexpected success. "The enemy is falling back," her tactical officer reported with surprise. "They're actually retreating." "Don't celebrate yet," Olivia cautioned. "They'll be back with reinforcements, but now we know their weaknesses." She opened a channel to all ships. "Well done, everyone. We've just taught the Shar-Kul that humans aren't as easy to conquer as they thought." Back on Earth, news of the victory at New Horizons spread quickly through military command. In a secure underground facility, Vice Admiral Paul Jackson reviewed the battle data with growing interest. "This confirms what we suspected," he told his assembled staff. "The Shar-Kul rely on overwhelming technology and predictable battle strategies. They don't adapt quickly when faced with the unexpected." He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared showing a new weapon design. "It's time to accelerate Project Thunderbolt. If Garcia's jury-rigged modifications could do this much damage, imagine what purpose-built weapons could do." The team of scientists and engineers nodded eagerly. Among them, Dr. William Chen spoke up. "The captured Shar-Kul technology reveals they've never needed to innovate in battle. They've grown complacent after thousands of years of easy victories. And that's their critical weakness," Paul concluded. "They expect other species to follow predictable patterns of behavior, to surrender when faced with superior technology." He smiled grimly. "They've never encountered humans before." Meanwhile, the Shar-Kul High Command received Vrax's report with disbelief. The ruling council, composed of the oldest and most respected Shar-Kul, had never heard of a species that could resist their military might. "These humans must be studied more carefully," decided the High Commander. "Vrax, you will return with 5 times the firepower. This resistance must be crushed completely." Vrax bowed his head. "It shall be done, High Commander." As the Shar-Kul prepared their counterattack, they remained confident in their ultimate victory. After all, they had conquered dozens of civilizations across 3 galaxies. One stubborn species could not stand against their might. What they didn't understand was that humans, unlike any species they had encountered before, thrived on challenge. Each setback only made them more determined, more innovative, more dangerous. The battle for New Horizon was just the beginning. The real war was about to start. 3 weeks after the battle at New Horizon, the Sharkul returned. This time their fleet was massive. Over 30 warships appeared in formation, their weapons already powered and ready to fire. Supreme Commander Vrax stood on his new flagship, his pride wounded from the previous defeat. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Show no mercy to these humans." The Sharkul ships moved forward with perfect coordination, their formations exactly as described in their ancient military texts. They had used these same tactics to crush resistance across multiple galaxies. No species had ever defeated them twice. Waiting for them was a much smaller human fleet. Just 12 ships formed a defensive line in front of New Horizon Colony. Commander Gregory Nelson stood on the bridge of the defender ship Courage, watching the approaching enemy. "They brought a lot more ships this time," said his first officer nervously. Gregory nodded. "Just as we expected. Are all squad leaders clear on the wildcard protocols?" "Yes, sir, though some of the captains are concerned about operating without coordinated commands." "That's exactly why it will work," Gregory explained. "The Sharkul expect us to fight as a unified force following standard tactics. They're not prepared for each of our ships to act independently." The wildcard protocols were a radical new approach to space combat. Instead of following a central command structure, each squad leader was authorized to make tactical decisions without prior approval. The only rule was to be unpredictable. As the Sharkul fleet came into range, they opened fire with a synchronized barrage that would have destroyed any conventional defense. But the human ships scattered in all directions, each following a different, evasive pattern. "What are they doing?" Vrax demanded, watching the chaotic movement of the human vessels. "Target the largest ship and destroy it." The Sharkul gunners tried to lock onto their targets, but the humans' erratic movements made it difficult. Even worse, each human ship seemed to be using different shield frequencies and weapon configurations. On the Courage, Gregory gave his next order. "Execute communication shift now." Across the human fleet, all ships simultaneously switched to an entirely new communication method, one that Dr. Catherine Williams had developed based on her study of Sharkul psychology and technology. Catherine was a brilliant xenobiologist who had made a critical discovery. The Sharkul had evolved in an environment with minimal threats, making them psychologically unable to handle continued failure. Even more importantly, they relied heavily on intercepting enemy communications to predict movements. The new system used rapid frequency changes that appeared as random noise to Sharkul sensors. The aliens couldn't jam what they couldn't track. "They've changed their communication method," reported a Sharkul officer. "We cannot intercept their transmissions." Vrax slammed his fist on his command console. "Impossible. Our technology is superior in every way." While the Sharkul struggled to adapt, the human ships began their counterattack. Each vessel targeted a different weakness in the alien ships. Some aimed for propulsion systems, others for weapon arrays, and some for shield generators. The Sharkul, trained to fight as a unified force against another unified force, couldn't respond effectively to 12 different attack strategies simultaneously. 2 human ships were lost in the initial exchange, but 4 Sharkul vessels were disabled. As the battle continued, the remaining human ships constantly changed tactics, never repeating the same approach twice. "This is not how space combat works," Vrax shouted as another of his ships reported critical damage. "They are breaking all established protocols of warfare." What Vrax didn't understand was that humans had no established protocols for interstellar warfare. They were making up their strategy as they went, drawing on centuries of their own military history where adaptability often defeated superior forces. As the battle raged on, a small group of human ships led by Captain Nicole Sanchez executed the most daring move yet. They retreated toward Jupiter, drawing several Sharkul vessels in pursuit. "They're running," said Vrax with satisfaction. "Chase them down and destroy them." But as the Charcoal ships followed the humans into Jupiter's intense radiation belts, they discovered it was a trap. The human vessels had been specially shielded for this environment, while the radiation played havoc with Charcoal sensors. "We've lost all target locks," reported a Charcoal officer. "The radiation is interfering with our systems." Before they could retreat, Nicole's ships emerged from hiding spots within the radiation belts and launched a coordinated attack on Vrax's flagship. Their weapons, modified based on data from previous encounters, punched through the Charcoal shields. "Direct hit on their command center," reported Nicole's weapons officer. Nicole nodded. "Press the attack. Don't give them time to adapt." The Charcoal, who relied on perfect information before acting, were paralyzed by the chaotic assault pattern. Their rigid command structure couldn't function without clear sensor data and communication links. As damage reports flooded in, Vrax made an unprecedented decision. "All ships withdraw immediately. Retreat to safe distance." The order shocked his officers. The Charcoal Dominion had never retreated from battle twice against the same enemy. As the alien fleet pulled back, cheers erupted across the human ships. They had done the impossible, forced the mighty Charcoal to retreat again. On Earth, scientists and military leaders studied the battle data with growing excitement. Dr. Catherine Williams presented her findings to Admiral Martinez and the Joint Chiefs. "The Charcoal have a critical psychological weakness," she explained, pointing to brain scans taken from captured aliens. "They literally cannot process continued failure. Each defeat causes cascading confusion in their command structure." "We exploit this?" asked Admiral Martinez. Catherine nodded. "I believe so. Their entire civilization is built on the assumption of their own superiority. They have no concept of learning from failure because they've rarely experienced it." "Unlike humans," said Admiral Martinez thoughtfully. "Our entire history is learning from failures." Meanwhile, in a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, engineers worked on a new generation of warships. These vessels weren't just modified human designs. They were purpose-built to exploit specific Charcoal weaknesses. "The phase shift technology is ready for testing," reported the lead engineer to Vice Admiral Jackson. "If it works, their targeting systems won't be able to lock onto our ships at all." Paul nodded with satisfaction. "How soon until the first vessel is ready?" "The USS Defiant will be operational in 3 weeks." For the first time since the conflict began, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were preparing to take the war to the enemy. The Charcoal had started this conflict expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a species that thrived on overcoming impossible odds. The USS Defiant cut through space like a knife, its sleek hull unlike any human vessel built before. On the bridge, Captain Daniel Warren watched as his crew prepared for humanity's first major offensive against the Charcoal. "Phase shift systems, online and functioning at 100%, reported his chief engineer. Daniel nodded. "All hands, battle stations. Prepare to engage the enemy." Behind the Defiant, 20 newly constructed vessels moved into formation. This wasn't a defensive fleet cobbled together from existing ships. This was humanity's new offensive force, designed specifically to fight the Charcoal. Admiral Lisa Martinez addressed the fleet from her command ship. "Today, we take the fight to the enemy. For too long, we've been defending our colonies. Now we take back what they've stolen from us." Her voice was firm with resolve. "The Charcoal believe they are superior. Today, we prove them wrong." The human fleet jumped to light speed, headed for the captured colony of Proxima Centauri, the site of the first Charcoal attack. In orbit around Proxima Centauri, the Charcoal maintained a small occupation force. They had not expected to need many ships to hold a conquered human world. Their sensors detected the approaching human fleet too late. Multiple ships dropping out of light speed, called out a Charcoal officer in alarm. "It's the humans." The Defiant led the charge, activating its revolutionary phase shift technology. The ship's energy signature began rapidly changing frequencies, making it impossible for Charcoal targeting systems to lock on. "They cannot target what they cannot fix in place. Daniel said with satisfaction as enemy fire passed harmlessly around his ship. Return fire, all weapons. The Defiance weapon struck with devastating precision, disabling the lead Charcoal vessel's propulsion system in a single volley. The rest of the human fleet spread out, each ship implementing the successful tactics learned in previous encounters. Lieutenant Commander Maria Rodriguez led a specialized boarding party from the assault ship Intrepid. Her team, equipped with advanced armor and weapons, cut their way into a disabled Charcoal cruiser. "Remember your training," she told her squad as they moved through the alien corridors. "We need intact data systems and prisoners if possible." The Charcoal crew, never trained for repelling boarders, fell back in confusion as the humans advanced methodically through their ship. Within 30 minutes, Maria's team had secured the bridge and engine room. "Command, this is Rodriguez," she reported. "We have control of the vessel. Beginning data extraction now." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human forces reclaimed the colony with surprising ease. The Charcoal, expecting to face the same tactics they had barely survived before, were completely unprepared for humanity's new capabilities. On Earth, civilian engineer Frank Collins worked in his small lab surrounded by salvaged Charcoal technology. Unlike the military engineers, Frank approached the alien tech from a unique perspective. He had spent decades designing video game systems before the war began. "It's all about input lag," he explained to the military observers watching his work. "The Charcoal neural interfaces connect directly to their ships. Very efficient but also vulnerable." He activated his device, a small, unassuming box that began emitting a complex pattern of electromagnetic pulses. On the test bench, a piece of Charcoal equipment immediately went dark. "Project Blackout," Frank said with satisfaction. "It temporarily disrupts their neural connection to their systems. Not permanently, just long enough to matter in combat." The military observers exchanged excited glances. "How soon can we deploy this?" Frank smiled. "Mass production can begin immediately. It's actually rather simple technology. We just needed to understand how their neural interfaces work." As news of the victory at Proxima Centauri spread, more human colonies were liberated. The unified human fleet moved from system to system, pushing back the Charcoal with increasing confidence. The aliens, who had never faced a serious military reversal in their 5,000-year history, struggled to adapt to humanity's constantly evolving tactics. Maria Rodriguez's captured vessels provided invaluable intelligence. Her teams discovered that the Charcoal had been conquering species for millennia, but had never encountered one that continued fighting after initial defeats. "Their historical records are fascinating," she told Admiral Martinez during a secure briefing. "They believe that superior technology always prevails. The concept of a technologically inferior species winning through better tactics doesn't exist in their worldview." "That explains a lot," Lisa replied. "They keep expecting us to follow some predictable pattern, but we keep changing our approach." "There's more," Maria continued. "I found evidence that other species under Charcoal control are watching our conflict closely. If we continue to succeed, we might inspire widespread rebellion." This information changed the strategic picture completely. Humanity wasn't just fighting for its own survival. They could potentially free dozens of enslaved civilizations. Meanwhile, the Charcoal Dominion faced its greatest crisis. For the first time in their recorded history, the High Command convened an emergency conclave to address what they now recognized as an existential threat. "These humans defy all established patterns," Vrax reported to the assembled leaders. "They adapt and evolve their tactics with each encounter. Worse, they learn from their failures instead of becoming demoralized by them." The oldest member of the High Command, a Charcoal who had overseen conquest for 3 centuries, spoke with grave concern. "If we cannot defeat them quickly, other subject species will take notice. The stability of the entire Dominion is at risk." Another leader spoke up. "We must deploy the Doomsday Fleet. No species has ever withstood its might." The suggestion sent murmurs through the chamber. The Doomsday Fleet was the Charcoal's ultimate weapon, a massive armada that had crushed rebellions across 3 galaxies. It had not been mobilized in over 500 years because no threat had warranted its use. After much debate, The High Command reached a unanimous decision. The Doomsday Fleet would be activated to end the human resistance once and for all. What they didn't realize was that humanity was already preparing for this escalation. Earth's combined industrial might was now fully dedicated to war production, with new ships launching every day. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop more effective weapons and defenses. The coming battle would determine not just humanity's fate, but potentially that of countless other civilizations. Across the galaxy, the Sharkul Doomsday Fleet emerged from hyperspace near the edge of the solar system. Over 100 warships, each larger and more powerful than any seen before, formed an imposing wall of destruction. At the center floated the Command Dreadnought, a vessel so massive it dwarfed even Earth's largest space stations. Supreme Commander Vrak stood on the bridge of the Dreadnought, his posture rigid with determination. "This ends today," he said to his officers. "The humans have been allowed to resist for too long. The Dominion will not tolerate further defeats." The Doomsday Fleet had crushed rebellions across 3 galaxies. No species had ever survived its deployment. The Sharkul were confident that humans, despite their unusual resistance, would finally be overwhelmed by such overwhelming force. Near Earth, Admiral Lisa Martinez watched the enemy fleet's approach on the command center's main view screen. Rather than fear, her expression showed calm resolve. "They've brought their entire reserve fleet," noted her second-in-command. Lisa nodded. "Just as we hoped." She opened a channel to all Earth Defense Force vessels. "All ships, implement Operation Checkmate. This is not a drill." Across the solar system, the combined might of humanity's military forces moved into position. Unlike previous engagements, this wasn't just the EDF. Previously, neutral human factions had joined the fight, bringing their own unique vessel designs and tactics to the battle. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Daniel Warren received the order with a grim smile. "You heard the Admiral. Battle stations. Activate phase shift systems and prepare to engage." His ship, along with 30 others equipped with the same technology, formed the first line of defense. Behind them waited hundreds of vessels of all sizes, from massive battleships to nimble fighters. This was humanity's full military capability, everything they had built and modified since the war began. The Sharkul fleet advanced in perfect formation, their weapons charging for a synchronized first strike that would, in theory, destroy half the human fleet in a single volley. "Enemy preparing to fire," reported Daniel's tactical officer. "Execute evasive pattern Delta," Daniel ordered calmly. As the Sharkul weapons discharged, the human fleet suddenly scattered in seemingly random directions. The massive energy barrage largely missed its targets, with only 3 smaller human vessels destroyed. The Sharkul commanders, expecting to see devastation, were shocked by the minimal impact of their attack. Before they could regroup, the human fleet launched their counterattack. Captain Laura Bennett led the decisive maneuver. Her ship, the Challenger, carried Frank Collins' blackout technology. As the Challenger approached the Command Dreadnought, Laura gave the order, "Activate Project Blackout." The device powered up, sending precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses toward the Sharkul flagship. Across the massive vessel, neural interfaces suddenly went offline. Sharkul officers found themselves disconnected from their ship's systems, thrown into confusion and panic. On the Dreadnought's bridge, Vrax watched in horror as control screens went dark around him. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Neural interfaces are failing ship-wide," an officer reported, forced to use manual controls that felt clumsy and slow after a lifetime of direct neural connection. "We've lost weapons, shields, and navigation. Control." With the Command Dreadnought temporarily disabled, the rest of the human fleet executed their coordinated assault. Each ship targeted specific vulnerabilities that Dr. Catherine Williams had identified in the Sharkul command structures. Unlike previous battles where humans had used chaotic, unpredictable tactics, this attack followed a carefully designed plan. Dr. Williams had discovered that breaking Sharkul confidence required first confusing them with unpredictability, then shocking them with a precise coordinated strike that demonstrated superior strategy. Admiral Martinez opened a communication channel to the disabled command dreadnought. Supreme Commander Vrax, this is Admiral Lisa Martinez of Earth Defense Force. Your flagship is disabled, and your fleet is surrounded. I offer you the opportunity to surrender. On his bridge, Vrax could barely process what he was hearing. Surrender? The Sharkul Dominion does not surrender to lesser species. Look at your tactical display, Commander, Lisa replied calmly. Your ships are being disabled one by one. This battle is already over. Vrax looked at the display in disbelief. Human vessels were systematically neutralizing his fleet with surgical precision. Somehow these primitive humans had completely reversed the expected outcome of the battle. In a desperate move, Vrax ordered his remaining functioning ships to launch a final all-out attack against Earth itself. If we cannot conquer them, we will destroy their homeworld. But Lieutenant Ryan Mitchell was ready for this. His specialized countermeasures team had prepared for exactly this scenario. As the Sharkul vessels altered course toward Earth, Ryan activated the planetary defense grid, a network of satellites equipped with Collins blackout technology. Blackout satellites active, he reported to Admiral Martinez. Coverage is complete. The approaching Sharkul ships suddenly lost power, drifting helplessly in space. Their final attack had been neutralized before it even began. Supreme Commander Vrax, witnessing the total failure of the legendary Doomsday Fleet, finally understood the truth. The humans had outthought them at every turn, using creativity and adaptability to overcome superior technology. It was a concept so alien to Sharkul, thinking that he had been unable to comprehend it until this moment. With no remaining options, Vrax sent a message to Admiral Martinez. The Sharkul Dominion requests terms. The words sent cheers erupting across every human vessel. For the first time in their 5,000-year history of conquest, the Sharkul had been defeated and forced to surrender. In the days that followed, news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy. On planets long subjugated by the Sharkul, oppressed species began to rise up against their weakened overlords. The defeat of the Doomsday Fleet had broken the myth of Sharkul invincibility. Representatives from various species reached out to Earth, seeking alliance with the humans who had achieved the impossible. A new interstellar alliance began to form, with humans, the youngest spacefaring race, ironically becoming its founding members and protectors. Admiral Martinez stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall, addressing representatives from Earth and newly freed worlds. Today marks the beginning of a new era. Together we will build a galaxy based on cooperation and mutual respect, not conquest and subjugation. As the celebration continued, a final transmission arrived from the retreating Sharkul forces. It was brief but spoke volumes about the impact humanity had made on the galaxy. Beware the humans, when they enter the battlefield, it's already over.